The holidays are almost here, and that means it's time to overeat. Well, okay, maybe not overeat, but sometimes we all don't eat well. Too much fat, too much stuff our bodies don't need. Chef Paul Buchanan is owner of Primal Alchemy, which promotes the use of fresh, locally grown food. He attended the California Culinary Academy, where he received straight A's for the first time in his life. A little trivia he shared with us. Welcome.
My mom was so proud. Yeah, first time.
Yeah. So, Chef, we're going to talk about this healthy fish dish in front of us. But first, let's talk about unhealthy eating. We all know that this is a time of year that many people just surrender to their worst enemies, themselves. Can you help us save ourselves from ourselves?
Well, I think around the family table, everybody is making so much food because they don't want anybody to go hungry. I mean, Thanksgiving was like, you have so much abundance from all the summer and the fall, and that was when you had the most food. So people just gorged themselves because they could. And a lot of times it was, back in Thanksgiving days, it was because it was going to go bad. So they were just going to eat it all up, and except for the stuff that they could store. But I think that tradition is stuck in our brain, and we think we have to overeat and stuff ourselves. And today, with a lot of convenience foods, it's easy to eat a little bit too much and a little bit too unhealthy.
Okay, so beginning with Thanksgiving and ending with New Year's, and all the parties in between, what should we be thinking about when we see those buffet tables?
I think it's the portion size more than anything, and just eating a wide variety and wide colorful plate. When you go down that line, a lot of restaurants are going to put the mashed potatoes and the rice and the things that are very inexpensive first, so you don't take as much meat. But if you do take meat, sometimes they'll cut it in very, very big portions, and you might want to take maybe just one slice or two slices, small slices, instead of taking, a large portion of meat.
Okay, so is it safer at home? What would you say, or what advice would you give to those of us who are planning our holiday meals at home with family and friends? What should we be thinking?
We should be thinking of not as much probably starch, and make sure there's enough vegetables and salad to complement that. Just like you would if you were looking at your plate, a good third of your plate should be, salad, a third vegetables, and then the last part can be starch on the bottom and a little protein, whether it be fish or meat.
Okay, so maybe think back to that old, what was that, like a pyramid of
yeah, kind of what replaced the pyramid was looking at a plate and just understanding like what portions of a plate would be a healthy amount. I think having a good portion of salad and vegetables, and then starch and meat is that last third. So that way you're not not half of your plate is starch and meat and half of your plate is vegetables and maybe something sweet. So you really want to kind of balance it out, and you can see it just by looking at the plate in front of you. So.
Okay. Well, we have one example here of a healthy meal that you've brought for us. Thank you for making it so beautiful. So describe this dish, please.
Okay, this is a local fish called sablefish or black cod, and it's in season year-round here. It's caught by local fishermen, and Westcott Fish is the name of it. It's also on the sustainable seafood list for the Aquarium of the Pacific. So it's a great fish that's caught here local. You're supporting a local fisherman. It's not a large portion. I mean, this is maybe only 2.5 ounces of fish. So you would have that with a healthy grain like quinoa instead of white rice. This is much more healthy, and some fresh vegetables from the farmer's market, whether it's tomatoes or persimmons. There's a nice starter. You could have a salad before this, and that could be your entree, and you'd be eating pretty good. That's a lunch portion or a dinner portion.
I'm looking forward to trying it. So you hear so much about overfishing in our oceans. What should we look for when we buy fish? You mentioned there's some list, or...
If you go to the Aquarium of the Pacific, they have a section on their website that'll be Seafood for the Future. And they'll have a list, and they'll tell you which fish are overfished and which fish are plentiful. And then going to see the actual fishermen here, down at the Dory Fleet and in Newport Beach is a good thing to do. That's probably the closest one that where if you go very early on a Saturday morning or a Friday morning, and I'm talking 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning early, which is early.
Very
but
early.
you have a lot of people down there that are fighting for that fresh fish. And sometimes it's not always the It's more one community is down there more than any is the Asian community is down there because they love fish and they love fresh fish, and so you're fighting them for the best fish. But I tell you what, when you get there and you see this beautiful fish like this, and they'll fillet it up for you, so you don't have to do too much of the work except for cooking it up in a pan, and it smells just like the ocean. Came off the boat that morning.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that this was just caught this morning, so.
Just caught this morning, yeah, beautiful black cod, yeah, and you just keep it fresh, keep it on ice until you're ready to use it, and you want to eat a fish like that within 2 or 3 days. Most of the fish that you will get at a grocery store has already been there for a few days, and it took a few days to get there, so it's already maybe 5 or 6 days old in some cases, and so getting fresh fish right from the source is great. And then they'll also know about which fish are plentiful and which fish are in season. But you can easily, anybody can get on Google today and find out about sustainability and sustainable fish. There's many websites, and a lot of them are associated with aquariums.
Okay, you brought some examples of some things that are not so fresh, and as we prepare for our holiday meals and get our recipes and our menus together for our gatherings, what are some things that we need to keep in mind and be conscious of?
I think just keeping a healthy outlook in things, and shopping in the center of the market is things that have been on the shelf for a long time or have been processed to be able to be shelf stable. So there's many ingredients that you probably wouldn't want to eat, or that your grandmother wouldn't recognize in here, and a lot of that ends up being sodium bisulfate and just different kinds of acids and names that you'd think are in a chemistry class, because they're stabilizers for these products so they can stay on the shelf and they can stay there a long time. It's tradition because your parents maybe cooked with that, but I think if you even made your own stuffing, the white bread is just as bad. White bread has so few vitamins and nutrients in it that the government requires them to add nutrients and vitamins back into it, because they've lost so much by stripping the grain down to just the white starchy part instead of a whole grain bread, which is much better for you. So here's a good example of a whole grain bread. So if you were going to make your own stuffing, why not make it with a whole grain bread? And it's just a little onions, a little celery. You cook it up. I mean, it's very, very easy. It still tastes good. Still got a little butter in there, but you're using a much better grain, so you're getting a much more healthy meal and still great flavor.
Right, and I noticed here you brought fresh cranberries, so I guess it's not a good idea to get that out of a can stuff.
That's not entirely true. I would say that cranberries, most of the cranberry sauces that you see out there are generally just sugar, citric acid, and the cranberries. And so it's almost the same thing that you would be doing home. This is actually for my daughter and I, because we're going to be making some cranberry sauce for our holiday meal. So we'll just cook these down with a little bit of lemon zest or orange. Any kind of citrus zest is really, really complementary to this. And you're just cooking it down a little bit in a pot and seasoning it just a little bit. But really, there's not a whole lot to it, other than sugar to offset the tartness of the cranberries. And so it's really 3 ingredients, 4 if you put a pinch of salt in there. Wow. So, and then it will keep for a long time because it's very high in acid. So you can use it just like jam or jelly as long as you keep it refrigerated.
Well, I'll look forward to experimenting with some of these fresh recipes. What are some final tips that you can give us about some of our favorite holiday foods like turkey and ham and lamb? Because although the fish sounds good, some of us are used to the turkey at Thanksgiving, and what should we keep in mind when we're shopping for our meats?
I think you should pay twice as much for your meat, and you should try to eat half as much. So pay twice as much in the fact that you're buying higher quality, an organic bird, a free-range bird, or lamb, or ham. And ham is probably the most difficult. I get in my own whole pigs, and we process and make our own hams from beginning to end. But I know a lot of people cannot do that. But I would say that if any time that you can buy better quality and something that hasn't been pumped up with a lot of saline, a lot of salt in these things, and you can easily overdo it. And then, like I said, we don't need as much meat as we eat, and we probably need about half as much. So if you pay twice for it and you only need half as much, then it's a break even. You're not paying any more, but you're being much more healthy in the long run, because food is the best medicine.
Yes, that sounds good. And we're not intaking a whole bunch of weird chemicals, right? That maybe we don't even realize
Are there. Yeah.
Right?
It's part of a processing. Food being processed has its dangers and has its pitfalls. So
Okay.
if you can buy fresh from the farmer's market and from your local area, or grow your own, like I grew my own carrots, I mean, that's the best, because you bring that to the table and you pulled it out of the dirt, you cooked it, and you prepared it for everybody.
Those are beautiful. And this is interesting. What is this?
That's Buddha's hand, or citron. So this is it smells just like a lemon. So it's very lemon smelling.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You can use that actually with the cranberries if you want, and make a nice chutney or whatever you want out of it. It doesn't have to be cranberry, jam. It can be a chutney, or you made something else, make it a little sour.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your dish and all of your wise advice with us. If you want to learn more about Chef Paul Buchanan and Primal Alchemy, you can visit www.primalalchemy.com.